Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. Can you feel it? The city is buzzing with Mariners fever. The M's are closer to the World Series than they've been in a long time. I'll talk about how they got here and what this means with Seattle Now sports correspondent Vaughan Jones in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. The Seattle School Board is still vetting potential superintendent candidates. They've got to fill the spot left by Superintendent Brent Jones when he resigned. The board is set to discuss the final slate of candidates today. The vote could take place today or even a week from now. The meeting starts at 4:30. You can watch it on SPS's YouTube channel. If you want a chance to ask local candidates some tough questions before the November election, today's your chance. Head over to the Seattle Education Forum, happening from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at Rainier Beach High School. Candidates for Seattle Mayor, Seattle City Council, King County Executive, and Seattle School Board are expected to attend. It's free to attend, but organizers suggest you RSVP ahead of time to secure a seat. And tough news for Boeing. After years at the top, Boeing 737 has relinquished the honor of being the world's most popular plane. Airbus is now number one with its A320 family of airliners, according to a new Reuters report. Part of it has to do with a slowdown in Boeing sales due to safety protocols at the company after 2 fatal crashes. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now.
The 3-2 pitch on the way, swung out, line drive, base hit right field. Jorge Polanco with a walk-off single, and the Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship.
For the first time since 2001, the Mariners are in the American League Championship Series, 2 wins away from their first ever World Series trip. The series stands at 2-0 with the Mariners and Toronto Blue Jays headed to T-Mobile Park this week. Seattle Now sports correspondent Vaughan Jones is here to tell us everything we need to know. Vaughan, thanks for being here.
It just continues, Trish. It's good to see you too.
The Mariners haven't been this close to a World Series since 2001. It's been a long 24 years, Vaughan, and this team has historically suffered. So how big a deal is the moment that we're in?
Yeah, we can start with some context. As we know, the Mariners have struggled to have playoff success, to put it lightly. They're the only team in MLB to have never made the World Series. In fact, they have only ever won 2 games in the ALCS, so they're tied right now for the furthest they have ever been in the playoffs.
Okay.
I talked to longtime Seattle Times baseball reporter and sports columnist Larry Stone about where this team was in 2001. They tied the record for the most wins in a regular season with 116, and then just fell apart in the ALCS. And it's years like that why the Mariners have this reputation of building fans up and then letting them down.
Well, they earned that reputation, honestly, because they've done a lot of letting down over the years. And frankly, a lot of times they never got to the stage where they were in position to let people down because they weren't very good.
Not to mention that after 2001, they didn't make the playoffs again until 2022. Some of the players on this current Mariners team also made the playoffs with the team in 2022, and they similarly just sort of fell apart against the Houston Astros after a very strong wild card win. Momentum is a very real thing in the MLB postseason. You can have a lot of good vibes going in, but if you don't perform, you can get bounced quickly, and that's happened to the Mariners multiple times over the years, which is partly why the position they're in right now is so exciting.
All right. Well, the last time we talked about the Mariners, we were talking about Cal Raleigh's historic season, and you said at the time you weren't sure if the Mariners would make the playoffs. The Mariners look a lot different than they did in July, Vaughan. What's new here? What's changed?
I can't be right 100% of the time. We'll have to settle for 99. An update on Cal Raleigh. He's still awesome. He ended his season with 60 home runs. That's the record for most home runs by a catcher, by a Mariner, and by a switch hitter in a single season. Mariners manager Dan Wilson spoke to KUOW's Libby Dankman on Soundside earlier this month. Wilson was the catcher on the Mariners during their 2001 season, so he knows how hard it is to do what Cal is doing.
It's been a front row seat to history. He has just done an incredible job. Cal Raleigh is a winner, and that's where it all stems from, his desire to win and to help this team win.
The team also did make some changes, 2 big moves. were made 2 separate trades with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They brought back Eugenio Gino Suarez to play third base, and he brought all of his good vibes with him. Good vibes only is kind of his MO. They were expecting him to come out blistering on offense, and quite frankly, it's been a little lacking in the postseason, but he's made some great defensive plays in these playoffs, and he brings an infectious energy. The other big move, and this has been a very popular trade here in Seattle, is bringing in first baseman Josh Naylor. Josh Naylor is very serious. You hardly ever see him smile, but he is what the baseball community likes to call a gamer. He is hard-nosed. He gives you great at-bats. He's the second slowest player in baseball, but somehow manages to steal a bunch of bases. He hit a home run in Monday's ALCS Game 2, and he's just a guy you want to go to war with. Here's Dan Wilson again.
I think when you look at both of those guys, Gino and Nails as well, what they have brought to the clubhouse has been immeasurable. And Nails, one of the more smarter players I've seen. He's just a guy who sees the game very differently. He sees a lot of the details in the game.
I'll note that both of these moves didn't exactly pan out right away. It took a little bit of time for the team to get adjusted to what they had, but they became blisteringly hot in September. Whether you credit the Etsy Witch or just some good fundamental baseball, the Mariners refused to lose for a lot of September, and some of that momentum has carried into this postseason.
Okay, you brought up the Etsy Witch, but we won't talk about them just yet. The Mariners made moves to try to get here, but baseball, Vaughan, is not an exact science. Is this really unexpected?
I think when you leverage the two things that we just talked about, the historic struggle of the Mariners with the big moves that they made to really push into this year's postseason, you kind of get a big shrug. If you had asked me earlier this year, which you did not once but twice, about whether I thought the Mariners would be here, I would say I wasn't sure, which again I did twice. And that's why I asked Larry Stone this exact same question, and this is what he told me.
I would be dishonest if I said I saw this as a team that was a World Series contender. I thought they were going to contend for a playoff spot, but unless there were big changes made, not necessarily a World Series contender. And there were big changes made at the trade deadline, and that changed the whole calculus.
Yeah, and Larry says he thinks this year's Mariners are pretty built for the postseason, and I agree. They have a lot of great pitching, a few key bullpen pitchers that have shouldered an increased workload, and the ability to hit home runs, guys that steal bases and create chaos, and that's all shown up so far.
All right, and they had to get through the Detroit Tigers to get to where they are now, including a marathon 5-hour game last week, which I would like to say I slept through.
That is really good for you. I was sitting body wholly clenched at a bar in Fremont. One of the magical and nerve-wracking things about baseball is that everything can change in an instant. When you're tied 2-2, like the game was for many, many innings last Friday, a single swing can completely change the momentum of the game. None of those momentum-changing swings happened for either team for a very long time, so they played for 5 hours.
Brutal.
The longest ever win-or-go-home baseball game ever played.
That was so stressful. I'm not kidding. I went to sleep.
The Mariners pitching in that game was masterful. Bullpen pitcher Edward Bizardo threw 2 2/3 innings of scoreless baseball. They had to dig into their starters for future games to pitch in that game because they ran out of pitchers. But I want to point to a very key moment in the 14th inning of this game. It wasn't anything that happened in the game. As you may know, the Mariners do something called the salmon run, where people in salmon costumes race in between innings. And one of the salmon, Humpy, had never won in 2 seasons of this new Mariners tradition. He was 0-165 until the second race of the day in the 14th inning on Friday. Humpy, picture this, is bringing up the rear as he always does until he breaks through the pack.
Oh my gosh.
They lit off the fireworks. The air horn is going. I am not exaggerating when I say this played a key part in the Mariners' win. This got the crowd going despite the nerves of the situation, and that momentum helped the Mariners load the bases for Jorge Polanco, who hit a single to win the game. The crowd's reaction to that hit showed up on local earthquake monitors.
Wow.
Is Humpy a metaphor for this year's Mariners? I will leave that to the rest of the baseball world to decide, but they are 3-0 since Humpy's first ever salmon run win.
Vaughan, Vaughn, the Humpy win feels not only like a brilliant move, but also an extension of sports superstition. I bet the rituals are in full force right now. I've even got one that I'm going with right now. I'm not going to say it. Superstitions in sports feel like they're as important as the game sometimes.
Yeah, well, my playoff beard is getting pretty long. I haven't shaved since the Mariners clinched in September. So superstitions pervasive in sports. People refuse to wash their lucky jersey, or if the Mariners score a run, you sit in the same spot and you don't move. But it feels all the more important for the Mariners. We all know the story by now of this fan that paid the Etsy witch to, and I can't believe I get to say this, the Mariners. We can't necessarily say that it worked, but they went on a tear in September, as we discussed. And now other witches are getting in on the fun. This is from Hockey Babbler on TikTok.
Friendly neighborhood Seattle witch here, casting spells for the Seattle Mariners. Today we're doing a jar spell. I used the herbs from the luck oil from yesterday, some candies for the sweet taste of success, and a lucky penny from 2001.
So whether you believe in magic or curses or superstitions, just know there is an ongoing cosmic battle between many forces, because you probably know they have witches in Toronto too.
And it sounds like they had a rubber chicken in the background of that tape, Vaughan Jones. All right, we've dealt with superstition, but there's games that need to be played here. Let's talk briefly about the other team, the Blue Jays. We've seen them for 2 games already. What's happened? What should we be looking out for?
Yes, the Mariners went into Rogers Center after that marathon game against the Tigers. They went to Canada 2 days after that game and won, not one, but 2 games in a row on the road, and they're up 2-0. But not without some resistance from the Blue Jays, specifically in Game 1. Mariners fans will be familiar with George Springer, who is on the Astros for the majority of his career. He hit a homer on the very first pitch of Game 1.
Baseball, which showed every bit of that in the division series. And on the first pitch, George Springer lights the fire.
Listen to that crowd. Listen to that crowd. And now note the difference in the crowd when, a few innings later, the Mariners superstar of their own, hello, Cal Raleigh, hits a home run to tie the game.
High drive right field. Cal Raleigh has connected and tied the game in the 6th. It's the big dumper when the Mariners need him
And a
most.
hush falls over the crowd, Trish. They were real quiet. A hush falls over the crowd. Cal Raleigh has statistically crushed at Rogers Center in Toronto his entire career. First 2 games, no different. They call him Canada Cal, among other nicknames. I want to give a special shout out to Jorge Polanco, statistically the most clutch hitter in baseball this year. So far in the postseason, he has 8 hits, and 6 of those hits have resulted in runs being scored for the Mariners. That's a big deal. The Blue Jays did not get the number 1 seed in the American League for no reason, though. We haven't heard from him a lot, but there is a very dangerous hitter for the Jays, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Look for him to make an impact as the series goes on. The Jays have a lot of power hitters in their lineup. It's hard to hit home runs at T-Mobile Park, but we'll see how they fare in Seattle.
All right, well, we know Blue Jays fans tend to turn out in full force at T-Mobile Park when their team is playing. Why is that, Vaughn? Is it because we're close to Vancouver? What should we expect for the games?
Yeah, this is the elephant in the room here. Jays fans travel really, really well to Seattle. Canada only has 1 baseball team, RIP, the Montreal Expos. And even though Vancouver is geographically closer to Seattle, the Blue Jays are Canada's team. So a lot of Canadians will root for them anyway. Although this past season, things have gotten complicated between the U.S. and Canada, and a lot of Canadians refusing to cross the border into the U.S. for any reason, including baseball. So T-Mobile Park wasn't as filled with Canadians this time around when the Blue Jays came in and swept the Mariners. I talked to Mackenzie McMillan about this phenomenon. He's a Vancouver, BC-based travel advisor. He says there's a sense of split identity for some Vancouverites. Canada's team, the Blue Jays, versus the Pacific Northwest team, the Mariners, has some people split, himself included, but he also gave a warning. Even though relations between the U.S. and Canada haven't been the best this year, the Canadians are coming over the border for the next 3 games.
You know, there's been other issues at play that is keeping people from going. But, we've been looking at availability on flights, hotels, and the Amtrak for the upcoming days. It's very, very busy. So I think we are seeing a lot of baseball fans who maybe were not coming down to the United States during the regular season, deciding that now is the time to pull the trigger and come down to Seattle.
What does a winning Mariners team mean for the city?
Yeah.
Other than a really cool thing.
Oh, yeah, it is a really cool thing. And I think that's a really big question. It's hard not to see the immediate impact around here. After the big win against Detroit last week, I did my Saturday morning routine of grabbing a bagel and some coffee. And every single piece of small talk I overheard or participated in was, how about that game last night? Sports are also just really emotional for a lot of people. The Seattle Times had a great piece this week about people thinking of family members they've lost or connecting with their families using Mariners baseball. And I think that's really special. We asked Seattle Now listeners what this team means to them. We heard from Adam Knapp, a pediatrician all the way in New Mexico that grew up on Bainbridge Island. He was a child in the stands in 1995 when Edgar Martinez hit the double, to send the Mariners to the ALCS.
I'm almost 40 years old with two little boys of my own who don't know how good they have it with these Mariners to be introduced to this version of the Mariners. I'm just so appreciative of these guys.
Even if things go south from here, this Mariners team has already gotten the city to a place it hasn't been in a really long time. I asked Larry Stone about this too. Aside from feeling a bit of FOMO from not covering the team this year, he told me there is nothing quite like hosting a World Series.
For years, I covered the World Series, and I'd just pop into a town and just see a town just alive with baseball fever, Atlanta or Detroit or Chicago or wherever I went. And to have the chance to see it here, I think it'll be unlike, maybe even the Super Bowl Seahawks.
The Seahawks have been in 3 and won Super Bowl, but those games are played in other cities across the country, not Seattle. The World Series is played at your doorstep, and the Mariners, after many long, arduous years, have a potential chance to experience that. And I really very much urge the people listening, the people rooting for the Mariners, just really enjoy the ride because it's an experience, playoff baseball, playoff sports that cities sometimes don't get very often. And I think this city knows that. So just really enjoy the ride.
Yeah. And like you said, at this point, the team has made the city proud. So we're all behind them. And
house money, baby. House money.
Vaughan Jones is Seattle Now's sports correspondent. Vaughan, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Trey.
Go Mariners.
Go Mariners.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thank you to our latest financial supporters, Ashley, Teresa, and Warren. Today's episode was produced and edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.